All right, hey everybody, how y'all doing? This is awesome. Is everybody getting sweaty right now? Okay, we're about to get more sweaty, so be ready for that. I'm just kidding, I'm playing with you. No, there's no more working out today, you're done. But I do want to say we have been here before and we have done a workshop at almost all the burns. Raise your hand if you've been to one of our workshops before. Yeah, let's go. Okay, so you kind of know what you're in for. For those of you who don't, I'll apologize in advance. It's going to be fun though. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about a lot of things, the things that you guys do in here every single day. We want you to be able to do them well so that you can continue to do these things 20, 30, 40 years down the road and your body doesn't fall apart. That's the goal for all of us. So let's talk about that. This is the Vulcan Movement Workshop. The goal for the day, so we're going to talk about several different movements. We have them listed out here. The deadlift, the front squat, forward lunges, chest press, single arm row, weighted Russian twists, pull-ups, and double unders. That is a lot of movement to go over. So when you're talking about movement, you have to preface first, and this is really, really loud. You have to preface first with how are you trying to do the movement. So we're going to discuss the gold standard. What is the perfect way to do each of these movements today so that you don't get hurt and that you're building the body that you want to build? Let's face it, I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hand. I'll go first on this one. I started working out so that I could have a better body and I could look better. Raise your hand if that is your reason for working out. Thank you for being honest. Yes, we do this for aesthetics. So the funny thing is, when we connect all of these things, when we move really well, when we move the right way, not only are we staying healthy, but we're creating the aesthetic body that we want to have because we're doing things the right way. So we're going to talk about the gold standard, and I'm going to tear down from there. So for instance, you can do a gold standard pull-up all day long that looks really, really good, but it may not be possible for a lot of us. So we're going to talk about the scales, the modifications, how you can get the most out of it that you possibly can, even if we're aiming for the gold standard. So we're going to improve your positioning and the positioning of the movements, and again, we're going to be stronger, more powerful, and healthier. So a little bit about me, you need to know who you're talking to. So my name is Sean Hiller. I'm the owner of Vulcan Performance Rehab and Recovery. Have you guys ever heard of Vulcan? Raise your hand if you've heard of Vulcan. Okay, a few of you guys. I want all of you guys to know about us. But we are a physical therapy clinic. Our magnum opus is that we are movement nerds. We understand the human body. Everybody who works in the clinic, who works for Vulcan, really are just strength conditioning nuts. Physical therapy is a branch of strength conditioning. People will tell you different. It's not. It's just another branch of strength conditioning. Strength conditioning is you're going from a healthy starting place and you're working out. You're working on your body. Physical therapy is we're starting behind the healthy starting line. We're trying to get someone to that starting line so that they can do what you guys are doing in here. So that is our magnum opus. And you can see some of the certifications on the screen. I'm a physical therapy, a doctor of physical therapy. I'm a certified strength conditioning specialist. I'm a USA sports performance coach. There's a lot going on there. I've spent my career nerding out on the human body and learning how it works. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so we're going to dive into some of these movements. You're going to see some familiar faces on the screen as we dive into it. Brittany and Abigail sent me a ton of videos of this, and they had no idea that I was going to use their videos, so it's pretty funny on some of them. But we're going to dive into it. So the first one we're going to start with, I'm going to grab a dumbbell too, is the deadlift, okay? So we're starting with the deadlift because this is the core of all movement. This is the most fundamental of fundamental movements. You are going to have to pick something up off the ground at some point in your life. It's just going to happen. So I wanted to ask Brittany wherever hey Brittany, she's standing up in the corner back there. Brittany, what are the common faults that you see with people who are deadlifting? What's the number one thing you see? Number one problem?
Fear.
Yeah.
And then also we go too far. We don't go too far.
Exactly. So the common fault that we see, we think about picking something up off the ground, our mind directly goes to, okay, just bend over and do it. I just pick it up. When you do that, you're sacrificing everything in your spine. Your spinal columns were really not made. Unhook the mic. Your spinal column, your back really wasn't made to do this with a lot of weight. Your vertebrae were actually made to glide and slide on one another, not necessarily hinge on one another. So when we do the deadlift, the first thing I want you to think about before you lift it is send the hips back. If the first thing you think of is just bend over, you're going to go chest first. The first thing you should think of will be hips back. When you shove your hips back, immediately your mind stabilizes your spinal columns. Immediately, it's the first thing your body has to do. So now you're picking up this heavy weight, and you're not here, and you're just crunching around on the spinal columns. We don't want that. We want everything to be nice, stacked, and flat, okay? And there's a fundamental difference between this and the squat, but we'll talk about that in a second. Would anybody like to be a brave volunteer for me so I can play with your deadlift and your front squat in a second? All right, come on, let's go. Okay, I want you to show me the ugliest deadlift you could possibly give me. One, like you walk into the gym and you see someone, you're like, oh, they're about to slip a disc right now. Like, show me what that would look like. And don't hurt yourself, but just show me what it would look like. Oh, yeah, that's actually not that bad. I've seen a lot worse than that. Yeah, okay, put it down, try again. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's grandma's deadlift. That's good, okay. All right, so now I want you to show me the prettiest deadlift that you can show me. So much better. Okay, so let's talk about this. So go ahead and put it back down, and let's go back to that ugly deadlift. So you're just bending over, all of this is rounded, it's not good. Now, what I want you to try to do for me, give me a little bit of bend in the knees. Okay, I'm going to try to push you forward. Don't let me move you, okay? Nope, round back over. Okay, I'm gonna try to push you forward. You gotta push back against me. Don't let me lean forward. Up on your toes. Look what immediately starts to happen as she starts to fire against me. And relax. I want you to fall back on me. She's in this position, but as soon as she starts to go forward, she starts to push back, and she actually starts to straighten out her spine. She has force that's going against her. She starts to utilize her posterior chain. You saw her when she was forward, she was on her toes. When she started fighting against me, she ended up being more on her heels. When you think about the deadlift, you want to have all the weight of your body running through your heel. So if we use that cue alone, pick the dumbbell up and have your weight through your heels and shove your hips back hard. Look at that position. Hold on. Look at that. That is 1,000,000 times better based off that one cue. Shove your hips back and have your weight through your heels. That is perfect. Thank you so much. No slip disc. Good job. Thank you. So we've got some cues here. We've got the hip hinging, we got the knee check, and then we've got our 3 points of contact. I'm going to go through this rather quickly because we got a lot of movements to talk about. The knee check, when you are deadlifting, we see, I said this at the beginning, we do this, we all want to have a better body, we all want to look better. Tell me what looks better, this or this? Yes, this is far more aesthetically pleasing. If you've heard the talk we've given before, is anybody a dancer in here? Like ballerina? Okay, I'll take anything if you've ever danced in your life. Okay, yeah, okay. So when you're looking at the greatest dancers in the world, when they go into a plie, and I cannot do a plie, so forgive me, but when you look at them, their knees are going to be in line with their toes or slightly outside. Why? Because that is aesthetically pleasing. When you see that, when you see someone dancing, you're looking for straight lines and symmetry. It's the same when you're lifting. It's the same when you're working out. So if you're working out and you've got these broken lines and crooked lines, it is not aesthetically pleasing and it could be harmful. So we want this nice position when I go into my deadlift. Hips are back, boom, knees are in line with the toes. Elbows are straight, however you're doing it from the side, whatever you're doing. And I'm driving up to the hips. Hips go back, hips come forward. That's the key you have to remember. And then the feet. Who knows what your feet should be doing while you're deadlifting? You might want to take a shot at it. Toes are forward, is that what you said? Yeah, okay, Brittany nailed it. So first off, you're right. You do want the toes forward, not out. Because when they're out, we break that aesthetics rule. Toes are forward, and we want 3 points of contact at the foot, the heel, the fifth metatarsal, the outside of your foot, your pinky toe, and then your big toe. So when you look at your deadlift position on the ground, you should have these accentuated arches on the feet. That shows me that you're active. Now, if we put it all together, I have great arches for this deadlift. When my knees collapse, my arches also collapse. So the rules at the hips and the knee apply to the foot as well. So we want good solid arches. It's going to keep us in a better position. If you have flat feet, which I know a lot of people do, you still should be doing the 3 points of contact. And when you hammer that big toe into the ground, whether you have an arch that comes up or not, your foot is still going to contract and perform the same function. Having a flat foot or not having a flat foot, it doesn't matter. It still applies the same here. Any questions on these 3 short points on deadlifting? Okay, sweet. We're going to go on to the front squat. Okay, so how many people like the front squat? Oh, okay, thank you. We got 2, 3, maybe? Okay, a lot of people don't like the front squat. So there's a couple of different ways. Look at Brittany's great form. She's just crushing it. Good job, Brittany. So we're going to talk about 2 different ways you can do the front squat. And we're going to talk about why you would want to do them in these ways. So I'm going to grab some dumbbells first. 40s? Well, you're going to be my example for this, so that's perfect. Let's grab some 40s. Let's go. Wow. How about 60s? No, I'm gonna grab some 30s. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do want you to be an example. So, go into the front squat, and that's a pretty heavy front squat right there too. We're gonna talk through it. First of all, let's just go through the squat positioning. So, Brittany, if you could just give me an air squat before we go through the front squat, just right here. Give me a really good air squat. So let's look at Brittany's position. So Brittany's down here, her knees, look at her knees. Her knees are in line with her toes. That's exactly what we want them to be. So if we saw Brittany's knees collapsing, that violates our aesthetic principles, our lines of symmetry. We want them out. You can go ahead and stand back up. I know it's hard to sit there. So one thing I want you guys to look at is her toe position as well. So we talked about we want our toes forward. Right now she's in a good position because the ideal spot for your feet is 0 degrees to a slight 12-degree toe out. That 12-degree toe out is very, very small. I don't want to see this, okay? When you turn your feet out wide, when you squat, you basically turn off your ability to fire your glutes. Everybody stand up real quick before we get to Brittany. Ooh.
There's a dumbbell there.
I know, there is. Okay, everyone, take your hands, put them up there. All right, now put them on your butt. Okay, all right, now everybody's feet are forward. I want you to go into that plie position. Turn your feet out. Now, I want all of us to very awkwardly squeeze our butt in this position. Get a gauge for how well you can squeeze your butt. Okay. Now, everybody let off. Let's go toes forward. Keep your hands in your butt. Now, I want you to drive your knees out and squeeze your butt now. You should get a much better contraction when your toes are forward versus when they're out to the side. Okay? You guys can have a seat. Great job squeezing your butt, everybody. Good work. Appreciate it. When you are squatting, the reason that is, when your toes are out, you have shortened your glute muscles so much that they can't really help you squat or stabilize your legs. Everything that happens below your hips is controlled by your hips. So when Brittany's gonna squat, without those, just air squat. When Brittany's about to squat and she drives her knee out, what she's doing is she's producing all the stability that her low back, her hips, her knees, her ankle, everything is satisfied at that point. If she lets them collapse, all of a sudden she ends up in a really bad position. We start to grind away on everything, low back, hips, knees, all the above. Okay, so we want to avoid that. So we've covered the tenets of the squat. Now let's talk about the front squat. Go ahead and go into that front squat, Brittany, and give me the same squat. Yes, so a few differences you're going to see immediately. When Brittany is in that squat position, she's much more upright, okay? Go ahead and come back up. You can sit them down. So she's much more upright because when you do an air squat, there's no weight on the front of your body. So when you go down, your knees are going to be further back. When I go into the front squat, my knees come forward. So some of you guys who have a little bit of knee pain or a little bit of hip pain, you might notice it more on the front squat than you do on anything else because of your knee position. Your knee is going to be more forward, okay? And you're going to be in a deeper hip position. So also, go ahead and give me that front squat one more time. If you look at her torso position, she's more erect, she's more upright. When you go into the front squat, you're going to have to use more of your mid-back to do this movement, okay? Go ahead and stand back up and sit them down. It is not, front squat is a harder variation of an air squat or even something else like a back squat, okay? So it is a harder position. I want to show you guys another option on the front squat that you might not cover at burn too much. But this is something that you can do if you really want to work out hard and get a lot more reps, this might help you. So when you're in this position, you are going to wear out your shoulders because you're having to stabilize the dumbbells. You can go into a front rack where you are here with your elbows high and you're actually going to trap the weight. The difference is going to be, though, in this position is you're going to be much more upright. Your spine is going to be directly up and down. So it's going to recruit more of your mid-back and it's going to work your shoulders a little bit less. So for you guys who, and this is something we deal with a lot in PT, people come to us and they say, man, I've got this hump in my back. I don't like this. I don't want to look like this. They fix this for me. Front squat is something we do a lot of, especially if you start throwing those elbows up, like we just talked about. Look at my mid-back. You should be able to see this. Just here, as soon as I throw my elbows up, you should see my mid-back start to go into extension. So when you work that in here and you load it with dumbbells, you're going to multiply the results you're going to get. So if you do have something like that and you want to work it, elbows high, and you should over time start to work on decreasing that thoracic kyphosis or the hump in your back.
So at Earn, we call the front rack, you'll hear us say weighted squat. So if we're like, hey, take it to a weighted squat instead, that's your cue. Just so you know, just the weighted, that's what they use.
That's good. Any questions on the front squat? Yes, ma'am.
How wide should your feet be? I feel like I do differently every time I do it. Because sometimes if I get tired, I get a little wider stance.
Yep.
Sometimes I start off like this and it hurts my knees. So I'm like, what's the correct?
Absolutely. So anytime you do a front squat versus a regular squat, you tend to get a little wider because you have weight in your hands, you're holding something. The ideal position for any squat is going to be feet slightly outside of the hips. Now, if you are a little bit wider, say you're here instead, that's still fine. The rule you can always check yourself with, are you able to squat and get your knees in line or outside of your toes? As soon as you're too wide and you can't do that, that is a bad position. You're out of position at that point. Also, I'll come back to this, the wider you are with your squats, you tend to toe out more. And when you toe out more, you're running more into bony anatomy that you can't contract. When you come in here, you want to work the anatomy you can't contract, and that is purely muscle. That's what we want to hit. So does that answer your question? Awesome. Anything else for the front squat? Yes?
How do you recommend actually getting the weights up? Because I can squat heavy weights. I can't physically get them to my shoulder.
Yeah, that definitely can be a problem. So we're going to talk about... So if we're going to talk about that, we've got to talk about how to do a power clean, essentially, because that's what it is. So if I'm going to take these weights from the ground, like if I try to just strictly, okay, I'm here, now I'm just going to strictly get them up here, that takes a lot of upper body strength. It's not, especially if you're trying to go heavy, it's not easy. So the ideal thing would be the dumbbells are down, you're going to get into that beautiful deadlift position that you already have. We already looked at that. So you're in that deadlift position, and from here, you're going to explosively send the hips forward. When you send the hips forward, you get the dumbbells up, and then you send the hips back one more time. This is a very, very complex movement that I don't want to go too far in, but so you guys can see it in real time, it looks like this. Okay, and now you're up, and then you can position yourself to go into the front squat from there. Any other questions? Excellent, okay. You mean like this?
No, literally.
Oh, like this?
Like this.
Yeah, as long as your coach is fine with that, as long as that doesn't beat the purpose of the workout. So I think something that you always want to look out for. So if you're looking for a really like a clean movement day, like a day where you're coming in, you're actually building strength, I don't know if I would do that as much on a strength day. Maybe I would do it on a day where you're going more like Metcon, athletic conditioning, to where you're just trying to get more reps and get a high heart rate. That would be a time I would do that, I would say. Okay. Okay, the forward lunge. Who wants to be my lunge example? No one. All right, okay, all right. So go ahead and show me. I want you to keep in mind all the principles that we've talked about with the deadlift and the squat, because they're going to apply to absolutely everything you do. So go ahead and show me a lunge, and then we'll go from there. Face this way if you don't mind. Great. Now go back to that position. Stay right there. I'm going to give you a 97.5 on this lunge. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I am going to adjust you a little bit, so you can drop it all the way down so you can rest for a second. So let's look at angles here. So there's a slight angle at the knee. This knee is a little bit ahead of her ankle. So if I was going to critique this and go for the gold standard, which is what we're going for today, this is totally passable for class. But for the gold standard, slide this foot up a little bit. Now the knee is directly over the ankle, and that is going to take a lot of the load off the front of your knee. So if you have something like patellofemoral pain, if you have anterior knee pain, if you have patellar tendonitis, any of those things, the further back you can get your knee when you're lunging, squatting, whatever you're doing, the better it's going to feel. The more forward it is, the harder it's going to feel worse. Okay? So this is the first thing I would change. Okay, hop back up. Show me your lunge again. Oh, look at that knee angle though. Got to get that foot forward. Yep. So look at what she just did. That's also fine. When she initially fixed that, bring your foot back a little bit further. You did not slide your foot out. You shoved your hips back. Yeah. That is the squat thing that we were talking about. You shoved your hips back, you protect your knees. That's also a fine correction for this. That's perfect. Okay, give me a few more. Give me 4 in a row. Let's just see what it looks like. She's really thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. Oh, this is pretty good. Okay, I've got one thing to say. This is really solid. Okay, you can stop. So go ahead and come back up. So one thing you can do, you saw that wobble that she had. If you think about walking the plank, you're on a very narrow position when you lunge. It's not going to hurt anything if you get a little wider and lunge that way. Therefore, you've increased your base of support. All of a sudden, you're not going to wobble as much. The one thing you didn't do that I was looking for, this is great, you didn't do it, but a lot of people will lunge like this. That knee's still kicked out, the foot's still kicked out, the knee's still driving forward. The arches are collapsed. We have violated all of our movement principles in this short little lunge, okay? Again, if you have knee, hip, low back pain, this can increase it, okay? Thank you, good job. Appreciate it.
Really quick, the wide step like he did, that's what we always encourage on, especially on walking lunges, right? Because walking lunges is a forward lunge, you're just taking that next step instead of stepping back, right? But you're still moving forward. That's what we always cue you, is to make sure that you step outside of that line so that you can't have more balance. So just like you did.
Absolutely. Any questions on the lunge?
So if you step out further, that helps with the knee too. I feel like sometimes I don't step far enough out.
Absolutely. Think about it. If you're taking a really short step, look at these angles that I'm producing. A lot of angles there on the front and the back leg. But the longer you step, of course, you can go too far. That's a really long lunge. Now I'm really fruiting some hamstrings. But this is the ideal position. The shorter you step, the more quads it is. The longer you step, the more hamstrings it is. So at the very least, decide if you want to blow up your quads or hamstrings at the end of the day, because that's what's going to happen. Okay. The wonderful chest press. Okay, so we've talked about the push-up before. This is kind of similar. I need a chest press example. Who would like to hop up here? All right, come on up here. All I see is bell runners. Come on. All right, let me grab something lighter than 30. I bet she could. I just don't want to have her hold it for 10 minutes like I'm about to ask her to. Let's go really light. Okay, go ahead and lie down, and let's get into the chest press position. I'm going to hand these to you. Show me your chest press. Okay, yes. So I gotta give you a B minus. Okay. So let's talk about this position here. So her finish position is really good. This is where you should start. This is where you should finish every time. Go ahead and do exactly what you just did, but stop at the bottom. Oh, and you fixed it a little bit. You knew what I was talking about. All right, so I'm going to take you back to just let your elbows rest around so people can see. This position right here, if I drew a line, it's just a straight line coming across her chest. This is not what we want. When you do this, you end up grinding away pretty significantly on the front of the shoulders. If you have anterior shoulder pain, this is something that could really aggravate it. Instead, what we want is this 45-degree angle here. She still has the dumbbells to the side or perpendicular to the other one. This is what we want. She's only controlling at the shoulder. Okay, now press back up. That's great, and then come back down to that same spot. That is far more ideal than the other one we just did because we're taking some of the shoulder out, but we're still loading the wrist like we should. As far as the rest of her body is concerned, this is a perfect position. This is totally great. You get an A+ now. If you do this every day for the rest of your life, you get 100. Okay? Good job. You can sit them down. Good work. Some other faults that you have to look out for while you're doing this is if you're in that position, and I'll go ahead and show you a few of them so you can see. So I'm here, I'm coming down, I'm at that 45-degree angle. It's exactly what I'm looking for. The problem is if I turn these dumbbells, okay, there is a time to do them. There is a time to do them. This is totally fine. And again, we're talking about the gold standard. Like I'm being really nitpicky here. If you are someone who chest presses like this, nobody's going to say anything to you. You're totally fine. I'm just showing you the gold standard. But one thing you don't want to see is look at my back. This is a no-fly zone. If I am here, if I am arching off the ground, trying to press this weight, I'm violating a lot of our movement principles, and I could be sacrificing my back while I'm trying to work upper body. Okay? Any questions on the chest press? I will show you how it's similar to a push-up. If you can see, in this push-up position, I'm going to do a good one. I'm here. My wrists are still forward. I'm not flaring my wrists out like we just did on the chest press. My fingers are still forward. I'm pressing up, and I'm coming back down. Same concept as the chest press. My elbows are at a 45-degree angle, but my wrist position never changes. That is ideal. No questions on the chest press.
Is it ever acceptable to lift your butt up and to help?
Oh, yeah, it starts getting hard.
Yeah.
We would call that a no rep in a lot of ways. So if you just give out and you're tired, I'm sorry. Oh, well, yeah.
We do have some where you're in a hold, glute bridge hold, and then you're going, but when you're using your hips, it's a no. If you start over.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, ma'am.
If you get to that point where you're pretty heavy and you're starting to get tired and start to feel your back lift, is it okay to maybe take your feet off the ground to help force your back down, or is that also cheating?
At that point, you have achieved the stimulus of the workout and you have gone to muscle failure. So you've done a good job. Now you probably should just rest for a second before you do another good rep. Or just wait until Brittany's not looking and then try to do it.
I'm always looking.
No one would ever do that. Okay, all right, single arm row. And this is a little bit of a different one. So who wants to be the single arm row example? Oh, man. All right, you're up. Got the chair and everything. I like it. Okay. Okay, so show me your single arm row. You feel free to use the 10s. I'm not going to. Yeah. Say what?
With weight or without weight?
With weight. With weight. Show me your single arm row. That is, turn to the side and show everybody that position. That is a really, really good single arm row.
Switch sides.
Oh.
Other arm. So people can see this one.
Switch the other way. Sorry. Okay. Y'all, this is a great position. Okay, just hang out here. So we've got a 90-degree angle at the knee. It's straight down, straight back. It's exactly what we want. The front knee, if we wanted to be just super picky, is slightly forward. But this is a 90-degree angle here. She's resting her elbow on the knee. Go ahead and give me a few rows in this position. Look at what is not moving. None of this is moving, and that is exactly what you want. As soon as she starts, go ahead and give me a few rows. This is a pure shoulder movement. This is what's being worked while everything else stabilizes and braces. This is 100. Good job. Great. So what we don't want to see, I don't want to see that. Okay? Yeah, I know. I know. So if you've got a heavier weight and you start throwing your body around, you're not achieving the stimulus that they want you to achieve unless they tell you differently. So this is a great exercise to focus on the shoulder. This is a great exercise to focus on the shoulder's relationship to the core. So there can be a place for both. It just depends on what your coach wants to achieve there. And Brittany's shaking her head. She said, no, I want you guys to focus entirely on the shoulder. Okay? That is the gold standard. Do you have a question?
Well, I guess for some reason I thought I should feel it on the side of my back, but you're saying I should be feeling it in my shoulder, not...
You will feel it on the side of your back too, because when I say, stand up here for a second, so I can just show everybody, face this way. So the shoulder itself is far more than just this. The shoulder itself is everything from your mid-back, your scapula, all the way to the front of your chest through the arm, okay? Where we botch this movement is when we start to include the spine as well. That's when all that rotation starts to come in, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. No. Well, Brittany's back there shaking her head like, no, they're not gonna throw that chest around. Yeah. Yep. Any questions on the row? Okay, awesome. As we go through it, the Russian twist. Who wants to be the Russian twist example? Please say no. Oh, you did. You shook your head no. You might be. They're calling you out now. They're calling you out. You can use a 10. You can use a 10.
It doesn't matter. I can use no weight. I know what it means.
Right there. I'm not the coach. You give it to Asia. Yeah. That is awesome. Y'all should give the coach at least one reverse card so she can reverse it back too if she needs to. That is awesome.
These are the best saving thing. I could train a reverse thing.
All right.
I had to buy them.
Well, now we're going to have the perfect examples. So show me a great Russian twist. Perfect example here. This is awesome. You can't ask for anything more than this. No. This is awesome. Now you just got to hold it the whole time I talk. Stay up there. So let's just think about, how we're feeling right now. How's the day going for us? Like we're doing great. This is such a deserved thing right now. I'm just kidding. You can come down. Okay.
Bend your knees and that's fine too.
Yes, absolutely. So going through that. So let's break down the foundation of the Russian twist. So the Russian twist is an old gymnastics movement that they gave to really young gymnasts when they were learning how to control their body. So it actually originates from the hollow body arch. So I'm in this position, I'm in this beautiful arch position. I start to shake because my core is really weak, but we're here and you should be able to control this hollow body arch.
This is what I mean.
Yeah. So every 4-year-old gymnast can do this. So if you're struggling with it, you're just like me, they can beat us all day. So the Russian twist is a different way to train this position and really train your core when you're in prolonged core examples, okay? So what Brittany just did was excellent. You can have a really, really strict Russian twist to where you're in that initial hollow body, but you just have weight like this and you're rotating throughout. If Brittany sees you doing this in class, she should give you like 4 high fives because this is awesome. Yeah. If you are here, that's fine as well. These achieve the same thing. I will say this, I would rather not see anyone bring the toes up when they're doing this. This is a common thing because, and this gets a little bit more scientific, anytime your toes lift up, you start to shift your body from an anterior abs focus to a posterior chain focus, which is going to be more trunk, your low back. This is really, really nitpicky. Again, we're talking about the gold standard of things. So when you do this movement, keep your toes pointed, and you're actually going to focus a little bit more on the front of your body, on your abs. And if you want to get a little bit more out of it, you can always take both dumbbells, both heads, and touch the ground. You're going to get more rotation out of the movement.
With that, a couple things we see. Feet crossed. Feet crossed. Everyone does it. Okay. do not cross your feet. A lot of things. And then we see a lot of rounded backs. It's into their back.
So if you are rounding your back, if you're there and you start to round over, you're probably fatigued. It's fine to rest for a second and then get back into you're like, yeah. Brittany's coming after you.
You
If
can
you,
do 1 foot at a time. 1 foot at a time.
Can you speak to the, I'm sorry, you're about to.
no, go ahead. You're good. Good.
Can you speak to how far you're to go over? Like I think you're supposed to touch the floor when you go side, but.
Absolutely. And that's does Byrne have a standard on how far?
You're supposed to touch the floor.
Yeah. Okay. So then, obviously touch the floor, but also when I do, so when we do Russian twist type stuff in the past, I actually do this with a lot of lifters. We'll have them, typically you go through it quickly, you're hitting the floor and I'm hitting both dumbbell heads on the floor. It's a lot more rotation than just hitting one. So when it's a lot more rotation, it's a lot more ab work as well. Like if you've always done your Russian twist like this and you switch to doing them like this, you're gonna be real sore the next day because you're working abs you didn't know you had.
We're already switching, so y'all get ready.
Also, if you want to do a killer finisher on your own at home sometime, maybe y'all could do it in here, is just take your weight and count to 5 slowly as you go to each side. Oh, this will eat you alive. Just keep that in mind. Hey, she's over here, she's taking notes. Any questions on the Russian twist? No, I'm just saying it's a whole different stimulus. When you're doing it quickly, you're working the abs more dynamically. That's the typical Russian twist. If you wanted to do it slow in your own time, you could, because it's just a whole different dynamic. It feels totally different. That's mainly what I was getting after. Any other questions on the Russian twist?
This is kind of a general ab core question, but when you were talking about pointing your toes rather than flexing,
Yes.
does that kind of hold true for most core exercises, or is it specific to that?
It holds true for almost all of them. In fact, when we do the pull-up in a second, you'll see me point my toes. If I were to do a perfect push-up, you would see me do a push-up like so. The toe, having your toes pointed really just accentuates the core contraction of the rest of your body. If you view your body as a rubber band from fingertips to toes, you want to keep that rubber band as taut as you possibly can. Yeah. Okay. The pull-up, perfect timing. So you can see the little blue words on there. I say this every time because it sticks out in people's heads. How many of you guys like soggy French fries? Yeah. You like a soggy French fry? Wow. We all like crispy fries, right? Everybody likes a good, just nice crunch. So when you're doing a pull-up, don't be a soggy French fry. See how floppy that looks? That is floppy. Now again, we are talking about the gold standard. Pull-ups are hard. Pull-ups are really hard. The ideal perfect pull-up would be you are in a, I'll get over here so you guys can see. I'll try not to, thank you. So get in that perfect position. Again, toes are pointed. I'm in this really strong hollow body position. And now from here, I've got everything else static to where it is a pure shoulder motion as I come up. Okay, but I'm in that really, really good hollow body position. That is the gold standard. That's what we should all shoot for. You might not be there yet. So what do you do if you're not there? The next step would be if you're struggling to get a pull-up and this is how you have to get your pull-up, then by all means do it. Some things I don't want you to do is this, okay? Don't cross the legs when you do your pull-up. I'm being nitpicky, but the reason why is you want everything that you do to transfer to the next phase, to the next step. When you do this, you're killing your transferability. It's not going to transfer to this as well as it would have. So you're going to do a pull-up either way. You might as well do it in a way that's not going to hurt you. I would say that. Now let's talk about the scales. 2 really good scales for a pull-up. The scale that I always prefer, the modification, is if you can't do a pull-up, get yourself a box, get something else, or you can jump into it and then negative down from there. Now, if you are doing the negative, it makes a lot more sense to do the negative like this, with toes pointed, you're coming down like a really, really good gymnast, versus this. Okay? You're already up there. You might as well do it the way that we want to see transfer with. okay? I see a lot of faces like, I don't want to do a pull-up like that. Let's also talk about, so you can get a box, you can step off the box and control the negative down. Let's talk about the pull-up band, wherever those are. So if you want to use a pull-up band, use the example here. Ooh.
These are tight bands.
These are tight bands, okay. So there is a time and a place to use a pull-up band. If I were to use this pull-up band, I'm going to try to do it in that position the best I can. Okay, you can also do it like this.
Do the 1 foot thing.
Yeah, okay, 1 foot. So these pull-ups, if I use this band, I'm just gonna fly through the roof as I do these pull-ups, okay? If your pull-ups look like that, you shouldn't use this band, okay? Get a lot lighter of a band. You should the best way to break it down, if I was going to do a bunch of pull-ups and I got to 6 or 7, all of a sudden my pull-ups start to look like this. You know, it's getting hard, I'm struggling. That is how your pull-up should look with a band. If you are using a band and you're just repping these things out, then you're probably not getting any better. You want to use something that's still challenging. I don't know if I can get this next rep, and then you squeak that next rep out. That's more of what you're going for when you're training your pull-ups. Any questions on the pull-up? There's a lot we didn't cover on it. Any questions on it?
It sounds like I see some people that can do them, but they swing.
Like a kipping pull-up?
We're not,
Yeah.
so that is because the current standard is a strict pull.
Yeah.
There's a certain degree, right? But if you're keeping your whole body, we don't want that because it's not safe and you're not building as much, right?
Mhm.
So if you're having to swing your whole body, whereas if it's like a little kick to get you out there, that's different. But we don't want you swinging your whole body.
Yeah.
When people do it, it's just not the same.
So if the focus is you're trying to build upper body strength, then doing a kipping pull-up like this, you've just avoided all of your upper body. It's all hips at that point. So it's not really achieving the purpose that you want to go for. Some other things on the pull-up I want you guys to think about is hand position. The gold standard hand position is what we call a gymnastics hook grip. So fingers are over the bar, thumb is over your fingers. That is the best position. If you decide to go here instead, that's fine too. This is not something I'm super worried about, but if you want to be super transferable, go here. That's more ideal. So that's more of a comfort type of thing. I would say the wider you get, the harder it's going to get. So this is very comfortable for me. I'm slightly outside of my shoulders. You can go really, really wide, and you've actually shortened the distance for your pull-up. You don't have to pull as far, but it's actually gotten a lot harder. It's not as easy to do a pull-up this way as it is to do it when it's slightly outside your shoulders. And obviously you can get so close that you can't even do the pull-up because your head can get through. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You just got to get a little wider. That's it. Any other questions on the pull-up? Oh, yeah, toils.
What muscles are you supposed to feel activate to know you're trying to do a pull-up? Like, you know, like if you're trying to get to it.
Yeah, okay. So that's a good question. She's asked, what should you feel activating to know you're on your way to getting a good pull-up? If you guys ever want to just hang on the rig and do what we call a scap activation, it looks like this, okay? You're just slightly pulling up. I'm basically taking my head up, taking my head down. It's in all of a scapula movement, shoulder blade movement. That is how a pull-up should feel when you start it. That is the activation point. So I'm here, I start my pull-up. That is the first thing that happens on a pull-up. So if you're wondering, am I doing this right? I'm in the right direction. That's the first thing you should feel. Everything else after that should follow suit. What if it doesn't move? If it doesn't move, then your next skill after that is going to be hang down. You're going to put 1 foot on the ground, and with 1 foot, you're going to help develop that movement. And then after you have figured this out, then you can take that foot off the ground and you can try to do it without the foot. That's what I would recommend. You do want to see the shoulder blades rotate up and rotate down. Be ideal. Anybody else have a question on the pull-up? Okay. Dubs. Who? She is running. She's running. No. All right, who wants to be the double under example? All right, come on. Where are the? Let's grab a rope. Do you know what size rope you want?
The longest, probably.
That's a good question. I'm assuming that's gonna be a black rope.
Oh, I've never done these this type.
Do you want to? All righty, this is the moment of truth. Woo! Look at her. That is awesome. Okay, great, good job. So she's got the double under figured out. We're gonna break this down a little bit. So when you are doing a double under, the gold standard, and watch me just make a fool of myself doing these real quick, is you want to limit the movement everywhere except for the wrist. If you're really looking at the gold standard of this, when I don't even know if I can, I've never done it on a bouncy surface. Am I gonna hit the light? Okay, all right. I can't do it on a bouncy surface. I'll do it over here. So it's very limited movement. Look at the wrist. Elbows are locked out. Everything is straight except for the wrist. The wrists are what's producing that movement. That gets to be really hard if you've never been able to get double unders very well. So there's a few scales you can use to get double unders. The first thing that you can do is this.
Y'all laugh at me when I
Is that a big one?
I call them penguin taps.
Penguin taps.
It does work. That's how I got my doubles. It works.
Penguin taps. A lot of what you end up using when you do double unders is sound. You listen and you hear and you react based off the sound. So when you get used to doing that, you get used to that sound and your body starts to react auditorily. Okay? Now, you just saw the gold standard. Let's work from the bottom up. You're doing penguin taps. You start getting a rope. And you're thinking, okay, I've got to figure out how to get this rope to go under my body twice. Jump as high as you can. Start by really just, boom, you're really putting a huge lift into it. Allow yourself to get one or two, then stop, reset, and go again. If we don't want to see the knees bending a whole lot, but when you're learning these, feel free to do that until you start to figure it out. As your body starts to learn this movement, you're going to notice that your knees aren't bending as much, your elbows aren't bending as much, everything starts to get much more locked down to this position. And then all of a sudden you're moving really well. In fact, you can buy some double under ropes and have them fitted exactly to you. So like for me, this rope is actually a little bit long. I wouldn't want it to be this long for me. I actually want it to be a little bit shorter. But after you've gone through those progressions, you're doing your penguin taps, you get your long rope out, and you're doing your double under and you're bringing your legs up, you should always get back to trying to do them where there's very little movement. All of the movement comes down to the wrists. Any questions on the double unders? Yeah.
What's the point?
If they say doubles and I can do 66, I'm not enough, but wouldn't it be better? I'm
Absolutely. I'm with you. So,
Best question of the day. What's the point? That's all I'm good for.
so the best answer I have for you, so the sport that you choose to do defines the movements that you end up doing. So burn is a sport. You have picked the sport of burn, and they have decided for you what movements you're going to do. So therefore, learn the double under. That's the best answer I can give you on that, but I totally understand. I mean, from a physiological perspective, why do double unders? It's a great way to work a very elevated heart rate. So your heart rate's going to skyrocket when you do double unders. It's going to burn up your shoulders. It's going to start to burn up your quads. So you start to figure out, how do I actually operate with a really high heart rate and fatigued body parts? That's essentially what it is from a physiological perspective, yeah. But great question. Any other? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ideal length for a jump rope. Brittany, come over here. Put this directly under your foot. Both hands.
There with the phone.
One foot.
1 foot.
1 foot, yep. So Brittany doing dubs, if you can see, this is in line for shoulders. This is way too tall for Brittany.
I would do the balloon.
Yeah, you actually want it in line with your sternum. So wherever, so you have your chest, right about mid-sternum, you can feel the bottom of your sternum, that's a little bit low. Mid-sternum is where you want the handles of your rope to be. But that is if you're really proficient. That's if you're really good at double unders. So if you're just figuring out double unders, always go for a longer rope. This is gonna be a lot easier to do. But if you're really proficient at them, get the shortest rope that you can because it's the distance. You know, that rope's gonna travel much faster if it's shorter. Yeah, that's a lot better position. That's exactly where she wants it to be on her sternum. Yeah, good question. Any other question on the dub? Yes, ma'am.
So there's times when let's say to do it, and when I get it, like I try to lock it down, but then I feel like I'm kind of like bending.
We see a lot of hiking.
Yeah, piking. That's still a learning curve. Like you're figuring it out, you're learning them. Let your body do what it needs to do. The goal is to get over that rope without hitting it. If you do plenty of them, you'll start to figure it out. This is something truly that practice makes perfect on. You will start to figure it out. The idea is that you're at 2x4. Everything is straight except for your wrists. Your wrists are creating the motion. And I'll say this, one more thing on dubs. When you're holding, you don't want to hold it like this. I think probably goes without saying. You want to hold it more like this. I always say point your thumbs. And then with a thumb pointed position, you can go from there. Any other dub question? Okay, great. Okay, any questions about anything we've covered this entire time? Okay, awesome. Yeah.
I want to kind of go over just a little bit. Y'all, I know that we talk about mesocycles a lot in camp, but I also realize this is why we do these farm workshops, because sometimes we're moving 90 to nothing in camp, and it's hard to hear. So what a mesocycle is it is going to be broken down into 4 to 6 weeks with burn, where you're going to be continuing to increase your strength on these movements. So these mesocycles, I believe, run through June, I think is what we said. Mm-hmm. So right now we're on the deadlifts and the chest presses. Okay, so that's why we broke down all these movements, so that when that mesocycle time comes, you guys will start to see them over and over, and that is when you now have good form, so now we can increase that load. This is where we say form first, and then that load. So this is the standard form that we want before you increase that load.
Yeah. Guys, that is it. I'm going to hang around. Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's okay. We have some people who are struggling just to get to the jump rope, just to do the jump rope in general.
Yeah.
Not even working towards doubles. Can you give some tips on some folks just to get
Just a single?
regular single?
Just one single? Yeah. Biggest tip is jump high. It really is. Like when you are learning how to jump rope and you just can't figure it out, your best friend is going to be, okay, I'm just going to jump really high and I'm going to make sure I get over that rope. And it's just one of those things, as you get more reps in, your body learns it. Your body's like, okay, you don't have to look this bad when you're doing it. Let's start jumping a little bit less. And then you start to figure it out. I would say that.
You're just jumping without the break, period.
Yes. Though the penguin taps, we were talking, the penguin, what'd you call them? Penguin
taps.
Penguin taps, okay. The penguin taps are good, and even for a single, jump, tap. Every time you're midway in the air, you can give it one good tap and go from there. If you really want to get into it, they actually make some ropes that just have, it's not combined, so it's two handles and they just swing. So you could get some of those and you could jump and swing, and you can figure it out. Yeah. So that's a chin up. Yeah. So two different movements. The chin up is going to be far more biceps than anything else. The chin up's not a bad movement. It's just two different movements.
That's more of a PT question. If you have lower back pain or shoulder pain, should you even be doing?
Absolutely. I'll throw some stats at you, and this is kind of how we work. Is we have people come in to the clinic from burn, from anywhere, and they're like, I am hurt, I'm not feeling good, I'm just gonna stop working out. My job at that point is to beg them not to, because when you stop working out due to injury, anxiety levels go up 53%, depression rates go up 45%, and your injury rate for other injuries actually goes up about 38%. So when you stop being active, the body starts to fall apart. So we beg people to just do what you can. If you were hurt, let's figure out a way to get you moving without being hurt all the time. Yeah. Guys, I'm going to be around. We have a QR code on the screen. If you do have an injury or something and you want to talk about it, I'm going to hang around for a little bit. I can talk to whoever has something.